What's up, guys? This is Matt with the Colorado Spirits Collective. I am joined by Mike Myers here at Root Shoot Malting. What's going on, Mike?
Morning, man.
Thanks for having us.
Good to see you. Thanks for coming out.
Showing us around and everything. This place is insane. I dreamed of it last night, and it's not anything even close to what it actually is. So, Mike, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got your start and everything?
Let's see, I joined this operation about 3 years ago, basically running the full operations, which includes malting, basically everything from growing this and establishing some of the framework for what we're doing for future growth. And it's been a pretty wild ride for 3 years so far, with just lots of growth, lots of really fun, interesting projects going on. COVID, which was strange, but we were able to navigate it as well as we could. So as far as like education for malting background, I've taken a course through the University of Montana for the production of craft malting, and then I just recently completed a class at North Dakota State University for barley to beer program. So as far as credentials for malting, I have a couple of classes under my belt, and then a lot of first-hand failure and success. So lots of
the best teacher of them all.
I would agree.
Yeah. Cool. So we kind of talked about it earlier. Your title is Malt House Manager, but obviously you do a little bit of everything except for farming.
No farming.
No farming. You want to kind of go into
Sure.
daily, what your week looks like?
So basically for my role here is to oversee all the malting operations, so the production of everything in this facility, the bagging of it, the distribution of it, the cleaning of the grains. So basically anything that happens inside of this facility is my responsibility, which includes getting it out. I also dabble a little bit in sales, and just do anything pretty much to keep this place moving forwards.
Absolutely. And you hinted it on, or we talked about it earlier when we were coming around over here. You're one of the 2 full-time employees.
Yep.
And even with the 2, like, it's still a very small crew for how big your operation is.
We run Todd runs the farming side of this operation. I run the malting side, and we have Dan, who works in Denver, who is our sales associate for us. And then we have some folks that are sprinkled in to help with production and just the overall operation of this entire process. So we are vertically integrated, which makes us really unique as a malting company, that we're the farmer, the maltster, distribution, cleaning of the grain, storage. It all happens here on site. So it makes us truly unique that we're at our capacity vertically integrated.
To go off of that, like we talked about how you're the only company that does that. It's truly
There are some sprinkled in, but our capacity at our scale, we're pushing the upper echelon of what's going on in the craft malting world.
Right. So with like the craft breweries, the craft distilleries, when they say it's truly farm to glass, like you guys control farming all the way to where it gets to the brewery or the distillery, and then it's whatever the distillery does straight into the bottle.
Yep. So farm to table movement, farm to glass, however you want to spin it, it is happening 100% in this operation. So.
And then I think people kind of have an idea of what like malting is. Do you want to like break down the process?
So we take the raw barley and then we germinate it. So basically we're tricking it into growing, and we control the environment that it's growing in for the maximum results on the back end for the brewers and distillers. But basically it's a 7-day process for us from raw barley to finished product. So we do steeping, which is the first process. So basically we're the beginning of hydration for the kernels, starting to activate its enzymes and its growth processes. And once we're done with steeping, we move it over to the germination, which is right behind us, that happens in these drums. And that's where we have controlled growth of the grains. So basically we're sampling twice a day, making sure that we're not out of line in growth. We have the ability to control the entire environment inside of the drums, so we can produce an extremely consistent product time after time. So once it's done at germination, we basically turn the heat on and start drying it out inside of these drums here. So this is a dual-purpose vessel where germination and kilning happens in there. So once it's done kilning, then it comes out of the drums and we send it to the production side of our bagging side, where we basically just bag it up and send it out the door.
And then other than obviously you do the barley in here, what other grains do you guys supply?
So right now we have 2 different kinds of barley that we're growing, or that we're malting. We have Genie barley and Odyssey barley, which are both from Lima Grain, which is based out of Fort Collins. They're the seed provider for us. But we also grow alfalfa, corn for the dairies and for the distilling world, oats, wheat, rye. I'm pretty sure that's it.
Yeah. And then there's specifically one of the wheats.
So we have
very special.
We have it's called Holland wheat. It's kind of a story behind it is that this wheat is from Sweden, and the Olander family has generated from Sweden to America. So we reached out, got some seed in, planted it, grew a field one year, and then we grew enough to plant an entire field the next year. Like I said, it's called Holland wheat. We just call it Holland wheat. It's a red wheat, and it's really unique in that it's super high in protein, and that it's actually really coveted in the baking industry. So we brought it in. We're pretty much the only people that are malting it, growing it here in the United States. And right now, the Family Jones distillery is using it for their Annika Jones vodka. And then we have some brewers that are picking it up, making a lot of saisons and interesting things with it. But we're really focused on, it has a great story behind it. It's tied with the family that runs this that owns this operation. Really high quality product that's very unique to the brewing and distilling world. So,
and then you kind of touched on it before with obviously COVID is a huge challenge for no matter what industry, job you have, that kind of thing. But taking it back a little bit farther, as of like 2016 up to now, like what kind of challenges do you guys face?
Growing conditions. I mean, since we're the farmer, we're in control of everything. So, weather. We've had some issues with weather. We've had some hail damage on some crops. One year we had a really high wind storm that came through in March and damaged a lot of the barley as it was coming up out of the ground. So you're talking environmental conditions that we're fighting all the time. It's just the life of a farmer, pretty much. You just are always watching the weather and making sure that you're doing your due diligence to get everything planted, harvested at the right time, and trying to make quality decisions on the crops that we're growing to then filter through this operation here. So for challenges, the farming side is always a challenge. Challenge of labor, challenge of land, which land has become an issue. Now that we've expanded our operation, we now need more acreage to support this operation. So, the more we grow, the more land we need to grow everything. So right now we're losing a little bit of land due to some development here in just the south of us. We lost about 80 acres of wheat for this year's production, which the developer had started building houses just a little bit early than they had anticipated. So we're actually losing some farmland, which is a big bummer.
Right, for sure.
So,
and then you guys, you partnered with Traverse Energy recently, kind of to bring awareness of that. What were you guys more or less, if you could expand on
sure.
all of that?
Us being farmers, and farming is really important for this operation, so we want to put as much farmland as we can into farmland forever. So because we don't own all of our land, we lease it from development companies. So anytime that somebody comes in with enough money, they buy the property, then they start to develop it. So we're just losing farmland, especially here in northern Colorado, as the population boom is happening around us. They're just expanding the cities into viable farmland. So as farmers are retiring and their kids aren't taking up farming, it's more lucrative to sell the farm than it is to actually farm it. So we have this compounding problem in the farm world that we're fighting constantly with the growth of our city. So we're just trying to, we wanted to tell that story with Traverse, just why it's important and how impactful it is for not only just this operation, but food in general for, just everybody around here. And I think COVID really exposed the flaw in the supply chain. Like all of a sudden you can't get groceries at the grocery store. Here we are as a farm, trying to get stuff to the grocery stores or to the, people that are the cows, the dairies, and so just really exposed weakness in that supply chain. So we're just working with Traverse to try to get some awareness about what's going on and how important actually that farmland is and why it's important to keep it as farmland. Since we don't own everything, it's really at the will of the developers. We're just trying to put as much farmland into a conservation easement, which then entitles it to be in farm production forever.
Right.
So it will never be developed. So that's pretty much the goal of that 100-year lease, is just to draw some attention to it and the importance of saving farms.
You can find that on Root Shoot Malting's YouTube. It's on their YouTube. It's on all the social medias. And that's Traverse Image. So go check that out. And the video is called 100-Year Lease. And then thanks. And then kind of going off of that, obviously you guys are first to farm in that aspect, and then everything that comes out of here and like all your stuff you recycle back into basically being a almost no waste company.
I would say from my vantage point, this is a fairly low waste facility, as we're reusing our rootlets and the cleanings from the barley. It gets basically sent out for feed. It's really high in protein. And then we're able to recycle our water that's used for steeping and put it back out onto the field behind us. So all of those materials we're able to reuse. So really the only waste coming out of this is the plastic, the bags, the pallets that we're bringing in. So in my eyes, the malting process for us is low waste.
And then I don't know if you know the exact number. How many distilleries do you and breweries do you think you guys are across the state?
So we have about maybe 24 distilleries that we work with in some format, all different sizes, all the way up to Breckenridge Distillery. To we have some home distillers, which I know is it's not legal, but we have some home distillers. So we just range in the different outputs. And then for breweries, we have about 120 that we work with on a consistent basis. And then we pick up some every once in a while for like fresh hop stuff or specialty projects, or anybody that wants to do something a little different than what's out there.
And then speaking of projects, we were kind of talking about it before you guys with all the different breweries doing like the same materials and that kind of thing. Yeah.
So we've had a couple of projects going on. So the Colorado Strong project, which happened at the beginning of COVID, which was super cool. If you're a beer nerd, that was like that was it. That was the greatest thing ever. So we sent out the same materials to 100 and I think about 25 different breweries. They all made the same recipe, the same beer, with just their little tweaks on it, and then they released it. The deal was that the brewery got to keep all the proceeds from it, with just a small portion going back to the Left Hand Foundation, which basically put that project together. So once those beers started coming out, we had 150 or 125 of the same exact beers with the same materials, but they were all totally different. It was super cool. And then we had a project with Breckenridge Distillery where they're making single malt whiskey from just malt from this location. So that's kind of that helped us out through COVID. Just kept everything everything in operation.
That's cool. Like, again, imagine the pride that you have. Obviously, up here, you make the malt.
Yep.
You're doing everything on this aspect of it. You get to taste it. That would be like the coolest, one of the coolest things ever. I think
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So, this is probably going to air in the future, but today we have one of my home brews that was made on a professional scale that's being released at a brewery in Greeley. So, not only am I making it, but now I'm working with the breweries to help design their recipes that they're then bringing to market, canning.
Yeah.
So, just for a personal aspect, how cool is that?
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Definitely. And then one of the other projects you guys, we just got to taste some, which I was pretty excited about. You're working with Boulder Spirits. Tell us about that one.
So, you gotta rewind a few years back, but once we started, there were some excess materials here, some stuff that was, had been sitting around for a little while, and we were trying to figure out a good avenue to relieve that from us. So basically, we entered into a partnership with Vapor Distilling, Boulder Spirits, that we sent them a bunch of grains, they distilled it, put it in barrels, and then they're storing it, and eventually we're going to release that as whiskey that is co-branded between Boulder Spirits, Vapor Distilling, and Root Shoot. So we will have a Root Shoot branded whiskey out in the market. It's going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Like the project first started with maybe some stuff that was a little off spec at the beginning of what, us learning how to malt here in this facility. And over time, we've just doubled the amount every year that we've sent them. And so now they're getting like the top of the line stuff that they're distilling in their location. So the stuff that comes out should be like really fantastic when it does. So,
Yeah, obviously we like our spirits, and specifically our whiskey. So, is there anything else you want to share?
make sure you support your local craft malter.
Yeah. Cool. Sweet. Thanks again. Thanks for having
Pleasure.
us. Sweet.
Ready? You can stretch it out.
Stretch it out a little bit.
Make sure the back is straight.